So time to program. So we're going to go over here to machine apart. Do you want to machine the current document? Yes. Madison College inch mill. Accept it. Pulls this in. You will see our axis is aligned correctly, the X and the Z and the Y. So I'll say next. I am going to use a bounding cylinder. But actually the cylinder, well, we'll look up, see what we get here. We're going to do a bounding cylinder, and the cylinder is going to be around the x-axis, which is true, so I'll just pick my part here, and you'll see it gives me a bounding cylinder around the x-axis. And I want to add a little material onto the ends here. So radially, nothing. Front and back, I can put in 0.125 and 0.125. You'll see it just shows us with extra stack. It's actually a little too much. I'm going to put 0.0625 and 0.0625. There we go. That looks good. My material is going to be stainless steel again. So I'm going to go to stainless. Okay. And then I will hit OK here. Now for the origin here, the x-axis is right, the z-axis, I really don't want it on the center of the part there. So I can say create a new one and just tell it to offset my z 0.1875 to bring it up to the top of my part. I don't need to choose anything here. Everything else is okay. I just want to tell it to offset from where it was actually at. And I'll hit the check mark. So there we go. We got a good axis. Good location, we got stock to work off of, and now we're ready to actually program it. So I'll click on my Delcam tab. I'll tell it I want to do a new feature, and the feature I want to do is a side, and I'll hit OK. And my boundary, I don't really have a sketch to work with, so I'm going to use edges. I'm going to say select edges. Plane will be this plane here, and my edges are going to be this edge, and I'll rotate around and this edge. The bottom it already has. It knows that because I picked this for a plane, so I need to choose a top. I'll check the box for top and pick my stock, and you'll see that when I do that, it brings these blue previews up, and they show these gray arrows pointing which side it's going to remove material on. Now this one's good. It's telling it's going to remove this side, but this one's telling me it's going to remove that. So I need to click on this to get it to go the other direction. Now I accidentally clicked this face for the top, so I would need to re-choose that. And make sure it's orange when you're clicking it. And see how there it rotated over? So that looks like we have a good preview, so I'm going to accept this. You'll see the purple previews. I'm going to go to my Delcam DFS Features tab, and you'll see I have a rough and a finish. I'm going to simulate this by stepping through it and see what it's doing. It's probably grabbing way too big of a cutter, coming in here and milling this flat off. It always likes to default to the biggest cutter it can possibly use, and that's not always the best thing. Doesn't finish. So it gives me what I want, but it's using incorrect tools for my liking. So I'm going to stop it. I'm going to go into my rough pass. And you see it's using a 2-inch end mill. I'm going to double click this, and I'm going to tell it I want to use something a little smaller. I'm going to grab a 1/2-inch 4-flute. So you see a 1/2-inch 4-flute regular. And I'll hit OK. And that will also update my finish pass. If I look at the finish, it's updated to that same tool. Alright, now if I simulate it, you won't see too much there, but if I simulate slower, you'll see a smaller tool coming in and machining it off. Alright, so I have that. Now I want to drill these holes. So I'm going to do a new feature, hole, accept it, and I'm going to do this one. You'll see it's coming down there. My bottom, I want it to drill, I don't need it to go all the way through, but I do want it to go a little further than this. So for the bottom, I'm going to pick this face, and I'm going to tell it to go an additional 0.0625. It doesn't quite break through, which is fine, because we're going to mill this off afterwards. Now I could pattern this to some locations, but we'll just make two separate ones. Call it good. I'm going to tell this okay. And we'll look and see what this does. Comes through and just drills to one side. And again, I could pattern this over by making a point, two different points here and here. But since we only have two holes, that's more work than I really need to worry about. So I'm going to do another new feature, hole. And I'm just going to choose this one. I'll make the bottom, same as I did before, this face. And I'll put in here 0.0625 to have it drill a little deeper. And I'll accept it. Now it has both these drilling through. So for this side, that's pretty much all we would need to do. I would want to make sure that under my results that it's using everything I want it to use. See, it's putting 140 hole through here. My feeds and speeds don't look anything, too drastic. So that looks okay. If I do the playing of this, it's doing everything I want, except for it looks like it's hitting the center here when it goes between those two holes. So it's not raising up quite far enough. And the reason for that is when I did these two holes, I used this as my plane. So I would just need to have it wrap it up a little bit further. See how the hole starts here and it goes here. When it goes up in between these two, we need to make sure that it comes all the way up to the top. So I'm going to look in here under hole 1. I'm going to double click it. And I'm going to see my Z rapid plane is here is 1 inch, which is fine. The clearance is 0.1, which is only coming up a little way. So I'm going to go plunge clearance. And I'm going to make that 0.2. And I'll hit OK. And then I'll change it on my drill. Well, I'll change it on my hole number 2. And I'll make this 0.2. I'll hit OK. Now I'll see what happens when I simulate it. Now it doesn't hit. So just bringing that up a little bit higher. It's basically what does it come up in between holes. It's using the same thing. In between operations, it comes up to 1 inch. So everything looks good there. I'm going to stop this. And that will be it for this setup. The next setup we got to do will be a little bit different than this one. We can start using this one, but we'll have to get some alignments different.